Hello, hello. I see some people are logging on. Good evening, good evening. And welcome to our third webinar series, Sustaining the Positive Momentum. And we're going to give a few more people time to log in, and then we're going to get started. But while you're waiting for others to come in, I would like for you all to share your name, your role, and where you are joining us from. I love to see where our colleagues are coming from. Can't wait to see where you guys are coming from. All right, I see some rolling in. We have Long Island, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Wisconsin, Pittsburgh. Oh, Los Angeles. All right. We have a lot of people from New York. That's exciting. In New Jersey, Alabama. And we're going to give it probably a minute, 30 seconds to a minute to let everyone come in, to finish up coming in, and for you to introduce yourselves. New Hampshire. Well, we are about 2 minutes after 7, and I want to be good stewards of your time. I'm about to introduce myself, and as I'm introducing myself, please feel free to continue to put your name, your role, and where you're joining us from. So this webinar tonight, it is called Teacher Language for Engaged Learning. So in this webinar tonight, we will explore the use of teacher language and how it supports students academically in the classroom. So that's going to be our focus for this webinar today. Before we jump in too deep, I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to have my colleague introduce herself to let you all know how to use some of the features as I present this workshop for you all. So my name is Amber Searles. I am from South Carolina. I'm in South Carolina right now. I was looking for South Carolina on the in the chat. I didn't see it. And if someone is from South Carolina, I probably missed it. So I'm from South Carolina, and I am a full-time employee here at the Center for Responsive Schools. I am a curriculum and instructional designer, and my background is in middle school. But with this job, like I told you, I'm full-time. I'm working with elementary and middle. So both brings me joy when I talk about it. So now I am going to kick it off to my coworker, Jane.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jane Kofi. I am the Director of Curriculum and Instruction at the Center for Responsive Schools in the Programs Department for Responsive Classroom. I am coming to you from my home here in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm excited to be here with you this evening. Before jumping into full-time with the center, I did teach in the classroom everything from pre-K through 5th grade for 20 years. But I'm going to spend some time this evening just sharing with you a little bit about the features on this platform so that you can feel comfortable and so that everyone is aware of what's going on. as Amber is sharing information with you. One of the most commonly asked questions, and I'm going to start there first, is, will this be recorded? And yes. And so within a week, you will receive this recording so that you're able to review it or view it however you please. So a few things to make this run smoothly for you. If you're noticing that things are a little bit choppy, or if your screen is freezing, sometimes it helps if you have other browsers open that you go ahead and close those, so that it helps with the maximizing of the bandwidth for this webinar this evening. And if that doesn't work, another thing you can do is, if you exit, then you can just come back in and see if that helps with the connectivity. Throughout the webinar, there are going to be some times where there are going to be things that you hear that you want to connect with, and we invite you to use the chat box feature in order to respond to things that are resonating with you, but then also to say or share connections. And then you'll notice there's also a Q&A feature that allows you to ask questions, which is a great place to put them, because sometimes when there's lots of things going through the chat box, they can get missed. So if you've got a question throughout our time this evening, go ahead and put that in the Q&A, and then I will be behind the scenes answering those questions for you as they come in. Another thing to note about this particular platform is that you'll see, I see some of these from Richmond, you'll see that you don't have the ability to start and share your video or start and share your sound. And that's the way that this platform is set up, that you'll be able to see us and hear us, but you won't be able to see and hear each other. The way that you can communicate with one another, if you hear something and it resonates with you, is using the chat box, or a question using the Q&A. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Amber, and I'm going to mute myself, and I'll disappear for a little while.
Thank you so much, Jane. So now we're going to jump right into it. So here are our learning goals for this webinar, and I'll give you all a few seconds to look over the learning goals. So this is what we will be focusing on during our webinar. So right now, before we begin anything, we know the title of this webinar. What I would like for you all to do, in the chat box, I would like for you to think about this question and respond to it in the chat box. How do you use your language to support students academically? So we invite you to share how you use language to support your students academically. And I'll give you a minute or so to think about it and to place it in the chat. And while we are thinking, I'll give you an example of how I use teacher language to support students academically. What I did, I modeled the language that I wanted students to use to communicate with each other. So that's one way that I used it in the classroom. All right, so we have some responses. To encourage students, to give them compliments. Oh, excuse me, I didn't mean to go that far. Constructive feedback, positive language, very important, positive language. Paraphrasing and giving specific feedback. And it helps to paraphrase to our students to let them know that we hear them. And are we really processing what they're saying? So it's good to paraphrase and give specific positive examples. Reinforce student feedback and sharing. So these are a lot of great ways to communicate with your students. And I say that because you are in the room, the classrooms. You all are the practitioners in the classroom with your students. So all of you have a great start on how to use teacher language. Today, we are going to sit back and take a deeper look into teacher language. Not saying that you don't do it, because a lot of you have given great examples, but just give you some more and additional tips to bring to you, to take back to your classroom. So now let's talk about teacher language. What is teacher language? So teacher language is the professional use of words, phrases, tone, and pace that a teacher uses. So teacher language empowers all students to confidently engage with the curriculum content, the learning activities, new ideas, and that social interaction with each other. It also encourages a community of positive interactions, responsibility, accountability, if I can speak, accountability, and trust. And it also sends the message of consistency, safety, and expectations for respectful communication and interactions among all students, not only in the classroom, but in the school environment as well. The way we speak to our students should be the way that we want to model to them how to speak with each other. So today we're going to look at two types of teacher language. And we're going to talk about asking open-ended questions, and we're going to discuss giving high quality feedback. And I want you all to think about how it will, these two will support your students academically. So we use teacher language throughout the day, all day, every day with our students. So this allows students to make a connection to the content, to become autonomous learners, and to be able to think through academic challenges as they arise. I always think about it in the sense when I'm asking open-ended questions or high quality questions, which we're going to talk about. When students are working independently, I want them to ask themselves those same questions that I am asking them to help them be successful towards their efforts academically. So now I have a question for you all. This will be in the chat box, all right? So the chat box. Your first question, I just want to know, where were you born? Where were you born? And to start the discussion off, I will share where I was born. I was born in Greenwood, South Carolina. So in the chat box, share where you were born. Ooh, these are rolling in fast. San Antonio, Texas. Long Island, New York. Southtown, New York, Wisconsin. Birmingham, Alabama. All right. Thank you for sharing where you were born. Now, I want you to share, what was the town or / city where you grew up? What was it like? So tell us about the town that you grew up. What was it like? So I'll start it off. So Greenwood, South Carolina is a small town. We only have a few stores. When I was a teenager, we didn't really have many places for teenagers to hang out, just at the Skateaway. So just a small town, and we went out to eat most of the time since we didn't have any hangout spots to really go to. So I want you guys to let me know, what it was like growing up in your town. Oh, someone said lots of beautiful nature. I love it. I love it. Small town known for pizza, the suburbs, farmland. And I'll give some others time to respond. All right, we'll take a few more. Oh, someone had a lot to do in their small town. Music, shopping, parks, restaurant, great school, friendly people. I want to come there. Let me come there. All right. So as you all are rolling in with what it was like when you grew up, I want you all to take a notice. The first question was, where were you born? And the second question was what it was like where in the town or the city that you grew up. In the chat box, I want you to answer this question for me. What did you notice about the two questions that were asked? What did you notice? Take some time to think about it and then place your response in the chat box. I'm seeing some connections. So I see a lot of closed-ended questions versus open-ended questions, and I see a lot of everyone was engaged. We had the opportunity to know more about each other, and all of you are right. But I do want to say, many of you noted that the second question allowed you to give more information and give more thought to the question. The second question was an open-ended question. An open-ended question requires more thought. So the first question was a closed-ended question. Closed-ended questions typically have one right answer. Open-ended questions, on the other hand, have no single right or wrong answer. Open-ended questions draw on students. Let's bring it back to the classroom. So now we've experienced open-ended and closed-ended questions as adult learners. So let's bring it into the classroom now. Open-ended questions. Open-ended questions draw on students' own thoughts, knowledge, skills, experiences, and feelings. If you notice, a lot of us put in our thoughts and our feelings about the small town that we grew up in or the big town that we grew up in. And any reasoned and relevant response to an open-ended question is a good answer. So now let's talk about the benefit so we just talked about the characteristics of open-ended questions. So they draw on the student's own thoughts. So we're giving them the opportunity to think how they feel, what their thoughts on how they vision things. So what are the benefits of open-ended questions? Open-ended questions are powerful because they support the natural way that students learn. They promote student engagement, they encourage self-awareness, and they nurture a sense of community among classmates. And while we were doing these open-ended questions, a lot of you said to build community. So think about how you felt when you were answering these questions and think about what you'll get out of this webinar this evening when you use open-ended versus closed-ended questions in your classroom. So let's dig into the benefit of open-ended questions. So in no particular order, the first one is it supports the natural way students learn. So during the 3 stages of the natural learning cycle, you have generating ideas and goals, actively exploring, experimenting, and problem solving, and reflection. Students' response to open-ended questions help them develop more sophisticated thinking and knowledge, which leads to richer learning. It gives concrete activities based on ideas and goals they generate themselves. So we are digging into a way for them to really think about the natural way that they learn and that cycle that they learn. And it also, open-ended questions also promotes student engagement. So when we ask questions like, what do you want to try? We trust their ability to have good ideas and to think for themselves. If we ask questions that let the students know that we trust their ability to have good ideas, to think for themselves, and to contribute in valuable ways. By doing this in return, we help students feel a sense of belonging. They become autonomous learners, and they become competent in the content that we're teaching them. It also, another benefit is it engages self-awareness. Open-ended questions help students become aware of how their choices affect themselves and others. It allows students to reflect on specific actions that they took. And the last benefit is it nurtures a sense of community. Again, we said that in our chat box. When we ask a student, what's one interesting thing you learned about a topic, not only does that child become more aware of their own interests and viewpoints, but it allows the entire class and you as an educator to get a glimpse of their viewpoints as well. When we frequently ask open-ended questions, the class is exposed to diverse points of view about learning. So since we know the benefit about open-ended questions, so when should we use open-ended questions? Open-ended questions can be used in many classroom situations, including when introducing a lesson, a new unit, or activity during or at the close of a lesson or an activity. In each classroom situation, there can be a range of purposes for open-ended questions. To name a few, to increase students' awareness of what they know about a particular topic, to generate interest about a topic, or to encourage students, to make personal connections to the content that they're learning. So it's very important that we talk about that content, ask specific open-ended questions. We don't want a one-road question. We want to get a glimpse of their thought process. And for me, when I ask open-ended questions and for my students, that allowed me, whether, say for instance, if a student got an answer right or wrong, when I asked those open-ended questions, that let me know that students thinking behind their answer. And that gives you as an educator a way to navigate that student to the right answer or to the right answer, or just to get a glimpse of what they are thinking to help them get to the correct answer. So here are a few tips for using open-ended questions. So we talked about when to use them. So now, what are some tips for using open-ended questions? Genuinely open up to seek your students' thinking. And I always say, our students know when we are not genuine. We want to be genuine. In order to help our students become better academic learners, it is good to know what they're thinking. It's critical that we ask students with real curiosity about their thinking. And you want to accept all reasoned and relevant answers. They will grow to be more willing to reason and reflect. I always look at open-ended questions are the open door of students becoming to feel comfortable with answering questions in the classroom, whether it's one-on-one or whole group, because there's no right or wrong answer, just as long as it's reasoned and it's relevant. Clarify what you are asking. You really want to clarify with your students what you're asking. You want to articulate the boundaries. Say, for instance, if you ask your students, we have this bag of markers. How can we use the bag of markers? Students will say to color pictures or to make art or to be creative. But you want to narrow it down to where it is relevant to the particular subject area or the lesson that you're teaching. So you might say, how might we use these markers today to support our learning during science? So you are narrowing, you're setting those boundaries, you're getting them in the mind of thinking, how can we use these markers, not for math, not for ELA, but for science. So you're setting those boundaries. Also, another tip is use words that encourage cooperation, not competition. Sometimes an open-ended question leads to a competition amongst the students of who can give the best answer. While there is a place for competition, usually when teachers use open-ended questions to facilitate discussions, the goal is for students to collaborate and to learn from and with one another. So there's no competition in open-ended questions. To keep a discussion from, and you also want to steer away from competition to keep a discussion from turning into a competition, because we all know if one student says this and the other student doesn't necessarily agree with it, it won't be a cat fight, but they will begin to know, but my answer was best, or my answer was better. And we want to stay away from that. So, for example, it's the way in which teachers word their questions that either creates cooperation or competition. A teacher will want to be mindful of how a question is worded or how the possible responses that it can generate from the wording. And also, you want to watch out for pseudo open-ended questions. Amber, what are those? So pseudo open-ended questions is one that sounds like an open-ended question, but behind it, it has a desired answer or a certain answer that the teacher is looking for. So students will begin to start guessing. So have you all been in a situation where you ask a question and one student answered the question, and then another student answered the question, and then another student, and you're not really saying anything, they're just trying to say something to get you to respond, whether it's a right or wrong answer, or, oh my God, I'm hoping that my answer is right, so let me raise my hand. So we want to stay away from those type questions. And also we want to use wait time. Wait time is golden. So say for instance, if we ask our students, how many days are in a year? Some of our students will need to think about that, and some of our students will know it right offhand. But to give everyone a fair chance, ask the question and give everyone the opportunity to really think through the question, to think about the question. So as a teacher, you want to pause to give students the time to formulate their answers, because we do have some students that need that wait time and that processing time. And we have other students that will answer it just like that. So we want to create an equal opportunity in our classroom. So these are different ways to start open-ended questions. And I'll give you a minute to look at those. And as you all are looking at those, as we've been talking about open-ended questions, in the chat box, I would like for you to answer the following question. How might you, as an educator, use these sentence starters, these open-ended question sentence starters with your students? Remember, it doesn't matter the content, it doesn't matter the student. How would you use these with your students? And place them in the chat box. How would you use these sentence starters with your students? We have exit tickets, turn-in talks, describe a time where you felt anticipation as a way to discuss students' background knowledge about an upcoming lesson. Yes, these are all great responses. And I'll use the wait time that we talked about to give some others time to share their thoughts. All right. Comprehension, understanding, and to get students to think outside of the box. These are all great ways to use open-ended questions in your classroom. So now we've talked about open-ended questions. Now you will have the opportunity to watch it in action. I am going to show you all a video clip of teachers using open-ended questions. I want you all to kind of to write some of these open-ended question sentence starters down, and to also, as you're looking and listening to the video clip, listen at how the teacher words their open-ended questions. Look for some of these sentence starters as you listen and look at the video.
In this video, you'll see teachers asking open-ended questions for a range of purposes: to stimulate interest in a topic or activity, to deepen understanding or clarify thinking, to plan for or reflect on a project. As you watch, pay attention to how the teachers demonstrate genuine curiosity about children's thinking, clarify the boundaries of the question, and model respectful listening. Fourth grade teacher Natricia Rakestraw uses an open-ended question to generate interest in a scientific investigation.
We're going to learn today what's called a parallel circuit. So how does everyone go like this? Right now, you're making parallel lines with your arms. So I made kind of parallel lines with my wires. Okay, they kind of look like your arms right now. So in a parallel circuit, the electrons, they can choose either which path to go down. What do you predict is going to happen if I unscrew one of the light bulbs? You think it's going to turn off? Do you think both of them will turn off?
Yeah, because one is screwed off and then it can't go through and then the other one's gonna turn off.
Hannah, what do you think?
I think the brighter one is gonna stay because this time it's a parallel and they all connect.
You guys have a lot of predictions. You're gonna get the chance to try this.
All right. So now you've had the opportunity to listen and to look at open-ended questions in action. Now what I want you all to do in the chat box, I would like for you to answer the following question, or this can be a silent reflection for you if you have a sticky note or a notebook, however you decide to express it. What are some ideas you would like to keep in mind when using open-ended questions with your students? And we're going to practice that wait time that we talked about for open-ended questions. Again, you can do the chat box or it can be a silent reflection. I love it. Not to accidentally turn it into a pseudo question. Yes, yes. Open-ended questions keep students engaged. All right. We'll take a few more seconds. Yes, the questions need to be purposeful and intentional. Yes, ma'am. All right. So now we've had an opportunity to think about open-ended questions. All right. So now we're going to think about giving high quality feedback. But before we do that, I am going to share a quote with you. And with this quote, I want you to place in the chat box or place in your memory bank in your brain what resonates with you about this particular quote. And I'll read it to you. Students need to know their strengths in order to know what to stand on as they reach for the next higher rung. They need our words to help them do this. What resonates with you about this quote? And you can share it in the chat box, or you can jot it down beside you. Give you a minute to think about that. Supporting and scaffolding, that key word, scaffolding students as they think. Yes. We want to always build our students' confidence. Yes. We'll take a few more share outs. Yeah, we want students to recognize their own strength. So now let's talk about giving high quality feedback. Teacher language helps guide students to become reflective thinkers through giving them high and quality feedback. And some of you all, as you were commenting in the chat box, you said this, but in a different way, but you're making that connection. High quality feedback are statements or questions that let the student know that they are on the right track, and to check for understanding by allowing them to tell more about their learning through strategies or aha moments that they found as they begin to dig deeper into their learning. Feedback is key. Feedback is a powerful tool to help students identify areas of strength they can build on. And some of you all, you said this in the chat box. And when we find those areas of strength with our students, that's going to build up their confidence. And guess what? They will begin to become autonomous learners. So let's talk about the characteristics of not teacher language. We're talking about teacher language as a whole. Let's talk about the characteristics of high quality feedback. So it describes a specific behavior. It describes the specific behavior that the student is doing so that they know when they are on the right track. It also names these students' efforts and successes. It names the specific action or effort they are putting into their work to make them successful. And it also invites reflection. And this supports students in knowing and recognizing that they are on the right track academically when they know that they are on the right track. They know how to apply the same efforts and strategies and other related examples. High quality feedback can be verbal, and it can be written as well. And I often say, when we walk around and we may say, "Good job, Eric," on his schoolwork. Well, what is Eric doing that is a good job? Just by saying good job, how can Eric apply that to the test or the homework that he will have to do? So we want to be specific when we talk about good job, Eric. Good job with following all of the steps to that math problem that led you to the right answer. So we want to be very, very specific so that builds up students' confidence. All right, so now we talked about the characteristics of high quality feedback. Let's talk about the benefits. And we've been talking about this throughout the workshop, the session, excuse me. It helps to build a rapport between the student and the teacher. It also supports students to grow academically as they are getting specific and useful feedback as they think through the content. This type of feedback helps students continue their learning. So what are examples of high quality feedback? Here are some sentence starters to high quality feedback. And I'll give you a second to look at those sentence starters and to jot them down if you would like. As you look at these sentence starters in the chat box, what do you notice about these examples? Share with us what you notice about these examples in the chat box. And I'll give you some time to think about it. Clarity, consistency, specific. We'll take a few more. Yep, all of them are showing that you're interested in what your students are doing. And sometimes through the hustle and bustle of our day, it's so easy to just say, good job, good job, good job. But when we take that extra step, going back when students know that we are being genuine, when we take that extra step to notice their efforts and their success, that builds a student's confidence, and that builds a positive community within your classroom. So now, just like we did for the open-ended questions, we are going to watch a short video clip. And in this video clip, I want you to listen closely at the teacher's language as they are giving high quality feedback.
Through careful observations of children's efforts, teachers can help children identify strategies and skills that they're using to push their learning into new territory or take on challenging tasks. Kirsten Howard uses feedback to support a child's thinking about a math task.
I'll put the button over here so I can count.
Show me what you mean. Oh, now I think I see what you're doing. So putting the buttons on your chart helps you keep track of them? So you're organizing your work as you're going.
Look at
Jennifer, I can't wait to find out how many it is.
All right. So in the chat box, share, let me see if I can go to the next PowerPoint. Okay, there we go. So in the chat box, or you can jot it down, what did you notice about the high quality feedback that the teacher provided? And I'll give you some time to think about it and place it in the chat box. Genuine interest, yes. Oh, yes, put words to the student's actions, yes. I'll wait for more. She provides color commentary. Yes. Affirming, rephrasing. We're going back to what we talked about at the beginning of this webinar. So now we have talked about a lot of great ways that we can use our teacher language for the better, to build our students up to and also to help them scaffold the content. As a closing reflection, you can do this on jot this down on a sticky note, or you can do it right here in the chat box. What key insights did you gain from today's webinar about the use of teacher language? And I'll give you some think time. Some of us are still thinking. Yes. I had to always keep reminding myself, high quality feedback, high quality feedback. I just can't say good job and keep it moving, or excellent and keep moving. If I put excellent on the paper, giving written feedback, being specific with it. So to wrap up today's webinar, teacher language helps guide students to become reflective thinkers through giving high quality feedback and open-ended questions. So here are a few, if you want to dig a little deeper into teacher language, we have, so these videos that I showed you today, they're also on our website, or you can get the kit, the teacher language kit. We have Power of Our Words for elementary, and we also have the Power of Our Words for middle school. In an upcoming webinar, we have one more webinar in this series. Yay! Sustaining the positive momentum. Join us back here March 16th. And the topic of that webinar will be problem solving with students. Same time, same place, but just a different date. And also, if you're interested in bringing Responsive Classroom to your school, here is the contact information to reach out. And also, you can explore our webpage. And if you have specific questions that you would like to ask me, I love to hear from my colleague. Here is my email address here. All right. And thank you all so much for joining this webinar, and I'll see you next month, March 6th, for problem solving with students. You are very welcome. Have a nice evening, you all.